So, today as we celebrate St. Francis of Assisi, one of the things that's very interesting about Francis is that he himself didn't record all of his experiences with God, with our Lord Jesus, or with the Holy Spirit. Most of what we know about him, other people have recorded. And one of the people who did write quite a lot is somebody who's known as a theologian of the church, and that was Saint Bonaventure. St. Bonaventure entered into the Franciscan order in Umbria in 1224, so it is likely he knew Francis. That was towards the end of Francis's life when he was already very ill. One of the visions that Bonaventure wrote down is a vision that Francis had when he was on retreat on Mount Verna, that we read about in our Saints and Seasons. Francis had gone into retreat to prepare himself for the great feast of St. Michael, a feast that is at the end of September, the 29th of September. It sounds like he probably went in at the beginning of September. He would have been on retreat in a little cave, would have been his room during that time. And he had a vision. This vision is such a confirmation that it came from God because of a particular image. And I want to read first the image that comes up in the vision, because it is recorded in Isaiah chapter 6. So Isaiah writes, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a throne, high and exalted, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphs, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty," and so on. So it is thought, and this is what Bonaventure records, that on the 14th of September, as Francis was praying on Mount Laverna, God gave him a vision. And Francis saw a seraph flying, he says, from the highest heaven, and hovered just in front of Francis with 6 wings. So we have that confirmation. In the midst of the 6 wings of the seraph was a man crucified on the cross. The 6 wings of the seraph, the first pair of wings, were high above, reaching. The next 2 wings were flying, and the last 2 wings, the third set, were covering the man on the cross, crucified. And Francis says he was filled with inordinate joy and deep sorrow. Joy that God had seen him fit enough, and God had been gracious enough to gift him with this vision. Compassionate sorrow for the man being crucified on the cross. He took that vision into the retreat and prayed through it to try and understand what God was saying to him through this. All his life, as a mendicant friar, Francis had very much wanted to be martyred for his faith, because that's how much he loved Jesus. He wanted a physical martyrdom, and he would go in the Crusades and try and broker peace between the Muslims and the Christians, fully expecting to be martyred there, and he wasn't. And as he prayed to understand this vision, God revealed to him that his vocation, Francis's vocation, was not a physical martyrdom, but an internal spiritual martyrdom. The reason it felt good to choose this particular story is that I wonder how many of us realize that even in today's world, so often what we are called to is an inner spiritual martyrdom. And that spiritual martyrdom comes from a fervour for our Lord Jesus Christ, a deep fervour where we so want to be blended into Christ that what is in our hearts becomes externalized. The three ways that Francis in particular manifested that kind of fervour in an external way through his life was, first of all, that he truly believed in God's peace, and he tried to live that on all occasions and everywhere, be it between Christians and Muslims, be it between fighting amidst the brothers, be it in controversy in the church, whatever it was, he truly incarnated his understanding of shalom. The second was to love those whom others found repulsive. And we know that through the story of his love for the man with leprosy, jumping off his horse and hugging him. And the third one was loving one's enemies. And when we look at those three, I'm not saying necessarily that those are the particular emphases that God may be calling us to live, that spiritual martyrdom, that internal martyrdom. But just say, for argument's sake, we as Christians are being called to those three. My goodness, they are so relevant. If we could inhabit those three, the one of peace, shalom, the loving those whom others find repulsive or push away in society and sideline and marginalize, and loving one's enemy. I wonder how Christ would manifest in our lives that would touch, transform, and heal a world deeply in need of it, a country, a community in need of it. As we later on discover as well, it was during this retreat, in fact, that Francis's internal spiritual fervour and internal martyrdom was then externalized, and he manifested the stigmata, the wounds of Christ on the crucifix. Now, that is rare, but many people carry in their bodies the pain of what Jesus experienced on the cross. And the secret is never to advertise it. In Padre Pio, who's now Saint Pio, also had that. But it's how we use, or how we allow God to use that pain to be part of the ongoing redemption of this world. So inspiration, not to strive towards that so that we can feel better, but to allow Jesus to be the focus in our lives rather than to look at where we fail and then give up. And more to continue to allow the Spirit to draw us into that. Not for our sake, but for the sake of our Lord Jesus, who is still